I stood there in a groom suit, ready to marry the only person I'd ever truly loved. Funny thing is, 8 years earlier, she couldn't even stand the sight of me. Everyone thought she was my perfect little stepsister. I knew the real version hiding underneath. She smiled at everyone else. But every time we were alone, she treated me like I was something disgusting. When I got bullied at school, she never lifted a finger. She simply watched. Cold, expressionless. For years, I convinced myself she genuinely hated me. Honestly, I never questioned it. Until the night everything broke. The night I finally got myself a girlfriend. Right after midnight, someone knocked on my bedroom door. It was her. Standing there with the sweetest smile I'd ever seen. She softly asked if I was dating someone. I thought she was just making conversation. Then everything changed in an instant. She grabbed both of my shoulders so hard it actually hurt. Her eyes looked completely different. Obsessive, furious, desperate. Was ruining my life not enough? Why are you dating someone else? To understand why hearing that almost stopped my heart. We have to go back to the beginning. After my mom remarried, my entire life changed. My new stepfather was one of the kindest men I'd ever met. And he had a daughter 1 year younger than me. She became my stepsister overnight. My mom couldn't stop praising her. Top grades, perfect manners. The kind of kid every parent dreams about. The day we moved into their house, she welcomed us with the brightest smile. Welcome home, big brother. She even helped carry our luggage inside. My mom looked happier than I'd seen her in years. Everything looked like the perfect family. At least while the adults were watching. The second they left the room, the atmosphere completely flipped. I casually reached toward one of the trophies in the display cabinet. I was just curious. I never even touched it. She rushed over immediately, then shoved me away without warning. The smile disappeared. Her face turned ice cold. Don't touch my things. No smile. No kindness. Nothing. That was the moment I understood. The girl everyone adored absolutely hated me. And she wasn't trying to hide it anymore. A few weeks later, I transferred into her school. To make things even worse, we ended up in the same class. Our parents told her to take care of me. She smiled and agreed without hesitation. But the second we entered the school gates, she pretended she'd never met me. She stayed as far away from me as possible. Like I was contagious. She was basically the school's superstar. Beautiful, brilliant, good at everything she touched. Half the guys on campus had a crush on her. To everyone else, she was the definition of perfection. Only I knew what she was really like. And believe me, it wasn't pretty. One afternoon after school, I forgot my house key. She was still at club activities. So I had no choice but to find her. I had no idea that simple decision was about to make my school life a living nightmare. The moment I reached the club room, I walked straight into a public confession. Cherry blossoms drifted through the courtyard. Everyone around them was cheering. She kept that signature angelic smile on her face, then politely turned the guy down. No embarrassment, no cruelty. She even handed his love letter back with both hands. Classy, elegant, perfect. Then, her eyes landed on me. That warm smile disappeared instantly. She started walking toward me. My instincts immediately screamed that something was wrong. Without thinking, I actually took half a step back, hidden from everyone else's view. She completely dropped the sweet girl act. Her voice turned icy. "So, what do you want?" I quietly told her I'd forgotten my house key. She slowly reached into her pocket. I reached out to take the key from her. But before my fingers could touch it, she deliberately let go. Clink. The key hit the floor right in front of me. She didn't even bother looking down. She simply turned around and walked back into the classroom like nothing had happened. While I bent over to pick up the key, I overheard someone asking her a question. "Did that guy come to confess to you again?" She let out a quiet laugh. The kind of laugh that cuts deeper than a knife. Him? As if I'd ever liked someone like that. That night, she knocked on my bedroom door for the very first time. She stood alone beneath the moonlight, looking more beautiful than ever. But somehow, her voice was colder than ice. "Stay away from me!" From now on. After Mom remarried, she finally found happiness again. And honestly, that mattered more to me than anything else. Whenever my stepdad quietly asked whether his daughter had been bullying me, I always smiled and shook my head. I never complained. But every single time I covered for her, I caught that look in her eyes. Disgust, mixed with complete contempt. I swallowed every bit of frustration. If keeping quiet meant my mom could stay happy, then I could live with it. At least, that's what I believed. But after everyone mistakenly thought I'd confess to her, my life at school completely fell apart. Every day became harder than the last. I seriously underestimated how cruel teenagers could be. One stupid rumor was all it took to paint a target on my back. Random junk started appearing inside my desk. Every single day, there was something new. The whispers spread through the school like wildfire. Soon, everyone had heard some twisted version of the story. I became the joke of the entire campus. And through all of it, she never once stood up for me. Not even a single sentence. I couldn't stop wondering. Was she secretly behind all of this? The more I thought about it, the more it felt like she had pushed the first domino herself. Even without proof, I couldn't shake that feeling. She looked genuinely surprised, but that expression disappeared almost immediately. Instead, she smiled, like she'd just discovered her favorite new game. She took one slow step forward, then another. My instincts screamed at me to back away, but before I could create any distance, she leaned right next to my ear. Her breath was ice cold. She whispered every word slowly, like a demon marking its next victim. "You're finished." It didn't take long before I understood exactly what she meant. From that day onward, she completely changed her behavior at school. The cold, distant girl vanished overnight. Instead, she deliberately stayed as close to me as possible. Every morning, she walked into class beside me. After school, she'd already be waiting at the front gates before I even got there. She stuck to me everywhere. There was literally nowhere I could escape. And then, the bullying became 10 times worse. Yeah, this was the real nightmare phase. The revenge had officially begun. Someone glued every single page of my textbooks together until they were completely sealed shut. I couldn't even open them anymore. Someone even dumped black ink all over my chair. Yeah, I looked like a complete joke. The class bell rang. Everyone calmly took their seats. Everyone except me. I stood there while the whole class watched the show. Not a single person was willing to lend me a hand. Then, my obsessive stepsister slowly walked over. She wore the sweetest smile imaginable. In a soft voice, she pretended to ask if I was okay. "So, are you happy now?" I looked straight into her eyes. Every ounce of anger I'd buried exploded at once. Everyone expected me to keep taking the abuse. This time, they guessed wrong. I marched straight toward the guy who started everything. The same clown who had publicly confessed to her before. That pathetic simp. He had barged into my classroom again, just to bully me in front of everyone. And once again, nobody tried to stop him. He was still scribbling all over my desk like he owned the place. The arrogance was unreal. I grabbed him by the collar without saying a word, then dragged him straight out of the classroom. His scream echoed through the entire hallway. It was loud enough to hurt everyone's ears. He struggled with everything he had. Too bad. I wasn't letting go. I pinned him against the 5th floor railing. Half of his body was hanging over open air. The freezing wind howled around us. It whipped across our faces. His face turned pale. His whole body shook uncontrollably. The guy completely lost it and started begging for mercy. He apologized over and over, promising he'd never touch me again. He begged me to spare him. Turns out, he was terrified of heights. The commotion spread through the entire building. Students flooded into the hallway. Within seconds, the place was packed. Even with everyone watching, I never loosened my grip. Not even a little. Only when the dean and several teachers came running did things finally change. They forcefully pulled us apart. The moment they separated us, I spotted my obsessive stepsister standing in the crowd. She frowned deeply. There was something strange in her expression, something I couldn't quite understand. As we walked past each other, I lowered my head slightly, then gave her the most disrespectful smirk I could manage. After that day, I officially became known as the school's resident psychopath. Honestly, that reputation turned into the best shield I could have asked for. Nobody dared mess with me anymore. But something else changed too. My obsessive stepsister started acting weird. After one math class, the teacher told us to split into discussion groups. Simple enough. Except because of my little Sigma rage arc, everyone avoided me like I carried a raid boss debuff. Nobody wanted to partner with me. Groups formed all around the room. People laughed. I was the only one left alone, so I quietly looked down at my book, trying to ignore it. Then, a gentle voice spoke beside me. "Would you like to join me?" I looked up. Standing there was the kind class president. She smiled warmly. To this day, I still don't know why she reached out to someone everyone else had abandoned, but I accepted with a quiet nod. After school, she casually invited me to walk home together. I agreed without hesitation. Everything felt normal for about 10 seconds. The moment we reached the school gate, a familiar voice stopped me. I turned around. And of course, it was my obsessive stepsister. I frowned. She walked toward me with complete confidence, stopping right in front of me. That fake smile never left her face. Then she asked why I wasn't walking home with her. The kind class president looked between us in total confusion. She clearly sensed something was off. My stepsister pretended she'd only just noticed someone else was standing there. She smiled, ready to explain our relationship, but I cut her off immediately. No need. We're just neighbors. "Oh, is that all?" the class president asked. Then she smiled innocently. "Let's all walk together." I simply nodded. Once the class president finally left, the smile instantly disappeared from my stepsister's face. She let out a cold laugh. Just neighbors? I couldn't be bothered with her passive-aggressive nonsense. I turned around and walked away. From that day on, she became even stranger. At school, whenever the class president came to talk to me, within minutes, my stepsister would magically appear. She shadowed me everywhere like an NPC with permanent aggro. Honestly, it was even more exhausting than the bullying. So I made a decision. I deliberately grew closer to the kind class president. As we spent more time together, we slowly became real friends. The kind you could actually trust. She was gentle, kind, honest. She always thought about other people before herself. She felt like sunshine. Everything my obsessive stepsister could never become. And somehow, that difference only made the obsession grow stronger. That Sunday happened to be the kind class president's birthday. She personally invited me to her birthday party. Honestly, I almost turned it down. But fate seemed to be on my side. My parents and my obsessive stepsister were all out that day. The house was completely quiet. I cleaned myself up, changed into fresh clothes, and got ready to head out. But the second I reached the front door, the door suddenly swung open. Talk about terrible timing. My obsessive stepsister had come home early. The living room lights spilled across the entrance, illuminating her figure. She looked me up and down, then froze. Finally, she asked, testing me, "Where are you going?" My face stayed cold. I answered without emotion, "That's none of your business." I tried to walk right past her. She suddenly reached out and grabbed my wrist. Her grip was painfully tight. I frowned and told her to let go. She didn't move an inch. Instead, she squeezed even harder and demanded another answer. I stayed completely indifferent. It still has nothing to do with you. The next second, she slammed me against the wall. My back hit the light switch with a loud crack. Click. The entire house instantly went dark. Darkness swallowed the living room. Not a single light remained. I tried to shove her away in the darkness. Instead, she caught my other wrist, too. I couldn't move at all. She lowered her voice. Her warm breath brushed against my ear. Cold fingertips slowly traced my cheek, like she was enjoying every second. Then she whispered, "You still want to hit me?" "Brother! If you ever lay another hand on me, I'll pay you back." With interest. Even without seeing her face, I could picture that smug smile perfectly. I laughed. Then I suddenly lunged forward and bit down on the back of her hand as hard as I could. She cried out in pain and instantly loosened her grip. I shoved her away. The taste of blood filled my mouth. Metallic, warm, impossible to ignore. A moment later, the lights came back on. The room lit up once again. I immediately noticed her ears were bright red. There was obvious embarrassment in her eyes. For just a second. Then she buried it like it had never happened. She calmly raised her hand, wiping the blood from the bite mark with her palm. Then she looked at the blood on her fingers and slowly brushed it across her lips. A cold smile spread across her face. She challenged me with that look alone. "If you're brave enough, why don't you bite me here next time?" Yeah, absolutely unhinged. This girl was running a completely different game. I ignored her and walked straight out the door. This time, she didn't stop me. She simply followed a few steps behind. The early winter streets were freezing. Cold wind howled around us. Streetlights stretched our shadows across the pavement. She tailed me silently, like a boss enemy that refused to despawn. No matter where I turned, she stayed right behind me. When I reached the next intersection, I stopped caring. I took off running. The wind roared past my ears. But surprisingly, she didn't chase me. The birthday party was at a private karaoke room. I arrived outside the entrance. I took off my heavy coat, leaving only a clean, light-colored shirt underneath. I took a deep breath, calmed myself, then opened the door. Apparently, the class president hadn't told anyone I was coming. The instant I stepped inside, the noisy room fell completely silent. Every conversation stopped. Even the students singing forgot the lyrics mid-song. Everyone stared at me in shock. Under the dim party lights, only the karaoke instrumental continued playing in the background. The kind class president recovered first. She immediately broke the awkward silence. Her eyes curved into a smile. She looked genuinely happy. She hurried over to me. Her excitement was impossible to hide. I honestly didn't think you'd actually come. I nodded with a small smile. Don't just stand there! Come sit with us. She gently took my wrist, then led me over to an empty seat beside her. She smiled toward the student holding the microphone. Go ahead. Keep singing. The music started again. Little by little, the lively atmosphere returned. The table was covered with bottles. It was obvious everyone had been drinking before I arrived. Quite a lot, actually. The room smelled of alcohol, mixed together with the clean perfume drifting from the girls nearby. It created a strangely comforting atmosphere. Even my face felt a little warm. I cleared my throat. Happy birthday. The kind class president smiled. It was one of those smiles that instantly put people at ease. She softly thanked me. Then I reached into my pocket and handed her a small gift box. I got this for you. Her eyes immediately lit up with surprise. Can I open it now? I nodded. Inside was a tiny, lucky cat figurine wearing a peaceful smile. The first time I saw it, it somehow reminded me of her. Warm, gentle, comforting. It's adorable! I love it! Thank you! She hugged it happily. Throughout the party, some classmates kept sneaking curious looks toward me. Every time, she casually redirected their attention. Since transferring here, it was the first time I'd actually felt accepted. For a brief moment, it almost felt like all the loneliness had never existed. After a couple more songs, several guys stood up laughing. They said another guest had just arrived and went to bring them inside. The class president didn't think much of it. She simply nodded. But for some reason, a terrible feeling hit me out of nowhere. My instincts screamed. Then I saw the face walking through the door. I stopped breathing. My entire body froze. My obsessive stepsister still had a fresh bandage covering the bite mark I'd left earlier. The evidence was impossible to miss. The moment she entered, everyone gathered around her. She wore that same perfect smile. Flawless. She chatted with everyone, making the whole room laugh. Then she walked straight through the crowd, directly toward me, stopping right beside my seat. She pointed at the empty chair next to me. Is anyone sitting here? She asked with innocent eyes. Before I could answer, someone else responded for me. Nope. She naturally sat down beside me. My body instinctively tensed. In the cramped booth, I quietly shifted away from her, creating as much distance as possible. The kind class president didn't notice a thing. She simply smiled curiously. Wait, aren't you two neighbors? So why didn't you come together? The question hit like a critical strike. My expression stayed cold. I answered immediately. We're not close. The instant those words left my mouth, a hand grabbed my wrist beneath the table. Hard. The pressure was so strong it actually hurt. The class president relaxed. Oh, so that's all. I honestly thought you two were childhood friends. I calmly shook my head. No. Under the table, the grip tightened even more. Seriously? Just then, someone called the class president over. She stood up and walked away to greet more guests. The room remained dark. Music blasted through the speakers. Nobody noticed what was happening in our corner. My obsessive stepsister leaned closer. The fake kindness completely disappeared. Only her twisted obsession remained. You look really good today. Normally, that would sound like a compliment. Coming from her, it sounded more like a claim of ownership. I swallowed my frustration, then quietly said, Let go! She acted like she hadn't heard me. Instead, she squeezed my wrist even harder. Just as the tension reached its limit, someone approached. A tall figure stepped into our corner. It was the school's most popular guy. And judging by his expression, another boss fight was about to begin. The moment my toxic stepsister, noticed what was happening, she instantly loosened her grip on my wrist, like none of it had ever happened. The malice hiding in her eyes disappeared in a heartbeat. She put on that bright, innocent smile again, looking pure enough to fool everyone. At that exact moment, some confident guy casually draped an arm over his shoulder. With an easy grin, he invited her to have a few drinks with him. She narrowed her eyes for just a second, then accepted without any hesitation. The whole class immediately erupted with cheers. Everyone started hyping the two of them up like it was some romance anime. They kept raising their glasses, downing drink after drink. During the celebration, someone noticed the bite marks on her hand. They asked what had happened, then joked around, asking if she'd been bitten by a dog and whether she needed a rabies shot. She simply shook her head, saying it was nothing. But through the noisy crowd, her eyes never stopped tracking me. She kept staring at me the entire time. She knew perfectly well that I wasn't ready to expose everything in public. Inside the private room, the heavy smell of alcohol mixed with cigarette smoke hit me like a truck. My stomach churned, and I felt like I was going to throw up. I couldn't stay there for another second. I rushed outside until the freezing night air hit my face. The cold wind washed away the suffocating feeling inside me. Only then did I realize I'd forgotten my jacket. But there was no way I was walking back into that toxic room. So I stood alone by the street, letting the cold calm me down. Then I heard hurried footsteps racing toward me. The kind transfer girl came running after me. Her face was full of concern. She softly reminded me that it was freezing outside. She lifted my jacket, her fingers trembling slightly. Then she stood on her tiptoes, blushing as she carefully draped it over my shoulders. A gentle breeze carried her fresh scent toward me. It was clean, calming, and honestly, unbelievably comforting. After helping me, she didn't leave. She quietly remained in front of me. After a long silence, she took a deep breath. It looked like she had finally gathered the courage to confess. My name, ever since I transferred, on my very first day, I've been noticing you. Before she could finish, a lazy voice interrupted us. It came from behind. Her confession was cut off instantly. My toxic stepsister, had quietly followed us outside. She stood beneath the dim lights, her face hidden in the shadows. I couldn't read what she was thinking. She spoke calmly, without a trace of emotion. Someone's looking for you. That sudden interruption completely ruined the moment. The girl froze awkwardly, not knowing what to do. She hurried away so fast she almost tripped. Once she disappeared, my stepsister remained where she was, watching me silently. I had zero interest in playing her games. I turned around and walked away. But as we passed each other, she suddenly reached out, blocking my path. I looked straight at her. My voice was ice cold. She stared back at me, her expression twisted with something impossible to describe. Then she finally spoke. He likes you. It wasn't a question. She said it like an undeniable fact. My heart skipped a beat. For one brief second, my composure cracked. She immediately pressed further. And you? Do you like him too? I buried my emotions and answered coldly. That's none of your business! I shoved her arm aside and reached for the door. Then she called my name again. The way she said it felt like a snake hissing in my ear. Every time she used that tone, something bad always followed. And sure enough, a slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. She spoke casually. You think I should tell Mom about your biggest weakness? She had min-maxed every possible way to get under my skin. Just a few days earlier, my mom had given me a serious lecture at dinner, warning me over and over about how dangerous teenage relationships were. I stared straight into her eyes. No hesitation. You really think I'm afraid of that? She simply looked back at me, wearing a smile I couldn't read. Then she casually lifted the hand with the bandage. Without warning, she changed the subject completely. Her voice was cold. You bit me here. So, you owe me. I honestly thought she had completely lost it. What kind of logic was that? I refused to keep feeding her insanity. I ignored the nonsense and walked away without another word. Behind me, I heard her whisper. It sounded obsessed, almost pleased. By the time I got home, our parents were already back from work. As always, my toxic stepsister, put on her perfect little angel act. She played the role of the caring daughter flawlessly. But the moment our parents weren't looking, she leaned close to me. What exactly is so special about him? It took me a second. Then I realized she meant the kind transfer girl, Something inside me snapped. That's none of your business! The cold lights in the living room lit up her face. She smiled. But there wasn't a single trace of warmth in it. Her eyes carried an emotion I couldn't understand. Dark. Possessive. Then she quietly said, "But we're the same kind of person, aren't we?" That sentence hit me harder than any punch. I'd always believed my past was buried forever. Not even my own mother had ever noticed anything. Yet somehow, this girl had found the crack in my armor. She had uncovered the part of my past I wanted to erase forever. Because the truth was, before transferring schools, there had been an arrogant rich girl in my class. She ruled the place, like she owned it. Money. Connections. Bullies everywhere. Violence was always her first answer. Back then, another girl in class constantly targeted me. I hated her. So one day, I casually mentioned it to that rich bully. Big mistake. From that day forward, that girl never had another peaceful day at school. At first, I actually felt satisfied. Like I'd finally gotten revenge, until one afternoon, I saw her, bruised, crying, completely broken. She looked at me and whispered, "Do I have to die before you'll finally leave me alone?" That was the moment. My entire world came crashing down. I wanted to stop everything. I wanted to apologize. But before I could do anything, she transferred away. And she never came back. Ever since arriving at this new school, every time someone bullied me, I didn't feel anger. I felt guilt. I convinced myself that I deserved every second of it. Maybe this was karma. Maybe enduring it all was the price I had to pay. I believed if I never spoke about my past, that darkness would stay buried forever. But somehow, my toxic stepsister, saw right through me. She recognized the monster I had spent years hiding. We're the same. I wanted to deny it, but no words came out. My nightmare had just received a new game plus. Oddly enough, after that conversation, she changed nothing. She still followed me everywhere. Still acted like we were inseparable. Best friends. And because of that fake closeness, the entire school started believing we were secretly dating. So every afternoon after class, I use study group discussions as an excuse to stay on campus with the kind transfer girl for as long as possible. Eventually, Mom started noticing the pattern. One evening, she looked at me with concern. "Why have you been coming home later every single day?" I answered honestly. "I've been staying after school to study with a classmate." The moment she heard that, she stopped what she was doing. Then, almost cautiously, she asked, "A boy or a girl?" I paused, then answered without changing my expression, "A boy." She clearly didn't believe me. Instead, she smiled and said, "If you have questions about school, why not ask your stepsister? Your uncle is always saying, she's ranked first in the entire grade. Every single exam." I simply nodded. There was no point arguing. I headed back toward my room. But as I turned the corner, I found my toxic stepsister, standing silently behind the wall. She had obviously heard every single word. She looked up at me, smiling as if she'd already won. "Big brother." Mom's right. If you ever need help, just ask me. I ignored her completely, walked straight into my room, and shut the door. But here's the thing. The harder I tried to avoid trouble, the faster it found me. When the latest exam results came out, my ranking had dropped hard. Mom stared at my report card, looking unbelievably disappointed. Then, just like always, she compared me to my toxic stepsister, "Look at her! First place again! You have the best tutor imaginable. Why can't you learn something from her?" I almost laughed inside. Even if I wanted her help, who said she'd actually teach me? As if on cue, she walked past the doorway. With a perfect smile, she said, "Why wouldn't I?" To keep Mom from worrying, I had no choice but to agree. That night, I went to her room to study. The moment the door clicked shut, my face went completely cold. "I'm here to study. So don't play games with me." She blinked innocently. "Games? I came here to help you." I kept my guard up. Didn't trust her for even a second. She casually opened one of my textbooks, then spoke without looking up. "If your grades drop again, your mom will be heartbroken, won't she?" There it was. She always knew exactly where my weak point was. Every sentence she spoke was a perfectly aimed critical hit. Without realizing it, I found myself looking at her profile. Long eyelashes, a perfectly sculpted nose. The warm light gave her face an almost unreal glow. Even her ears were slightly red from the heater. At that moment, I finally understood why everyone at school was completely obsessed with her. Life had given her an absolutely broken character model. No matter how dark she really was, that beautiful face was the perfect disguise. She could fool almost anyone. Then she suddenly looked up and smiled. After she'd already seen through every mask I had, I stopped pretending around her. I answered coldly, without the slightest emotion. "The longer I look at you, the more disgusting you become." She didn't look offended at all. Instead, she smiled even wider. "But tell me, who do you think is actually honest about who they are?" Then, out of nowhere, she mentioned the kind transfer girl, I frowned immediately. "Why are you bringing him up?" Her smile faded. She slowly stood. Her voice remained calm. "Nothing. I just don't think he could ever teach you the way I can." It wasn't confidence. It was calculated provocation. A perfectly aimed jab. She knew exactly what she was doing. So what if your grades are better? I fired back immediately. She leaned closer. Way too close. There was something almost obsessive, burning behind those beautiful eyes. Maybe grades don't matter, but they let me spend time alone with you. And that's enough. The room suddenly felt unbearably hot. My thoughts became complete chaos. She stepped even closer. There were barely a few inches between us. She narrowed her eyes, then whispered softly, I don't mind. If I'm the ugly one. As long as you're beautiful. I knew perfectly well this was just another one of her twisted mind games. But hearing those words, my heart betrayed me anyway. It pounded against my chest like a raid boss warning. I forced myself to stay calm. Back off! The words escaped my mouth instantly. Even I froze after saying them. Not long ago, those exact words had come from her instead. Now our positions had somehow reversed. As much as I hated it, I couldn't deny one thing. She was an incredible teacher. Seriously. No matter how difficult the subject became, whenever I asked, she could break every complicated concept into something ridiculously simple, crystal clear. One evening, I stayed in the study, buried under a mountain of homework. Eventually, I fell asleep at my desk. When I slowly opened my eyes, a warm jacket was draped over my shoulders. She was sitting quietly nearby, reading a book. The only sound was the gentle turning of pages. The entire room felt unbelievably peaceful. I didn't dare move. I even held my breath. The jacket still carried her familiar scent. Clean. Warm. Comforting enough to make my guard slip. If only for a second. The hatred I'd been holding on to for so long seemed to weaken. Just a tiny bit. Meanwhile, after I'd skipped several study sessions, the kind transfer girl, found me. He looked genuinely worried. Have you been really busy lately? We haven't studied together at all. I had absolutely no idea how to explain the mess I was trapped in. Before I could answer, another voice entered the conversation. He's been studying with me. My toxic stepsister, had appeared out of nowhere. She stood a short distance away, acting perfectly calm. But every word screamed possession. The kind transfer girl scratched his head. He was far too innocent to notice the invisible PvP battle happening between us. He simply laughed. Well, you two live nearby. I guess studying together really is convenient. Then his face lit up. Oh, right. This Saturday, I'm organizing a camping trip for the class. A little celebration after the exams. Want to come with us? I never liked group activities. I was just about to politely decline when my toxic stepsister, looked at me once and answered for me. The guy couldn't even hide his smile. Awesome, Saturday morning. Meet at the school gate. See you there. After he happily walked away. The possessive stepbrother stared straight at me. That smug little smile on his face instantly annoyed me. So, you actually wanted to go that badly? He thought he'd already figured me out. Too bad for him. There are plenty of things you'll never understand. I wasn't about to waste another second arguing. I turned around and started walking away. Then his calm voice floated over from behind me. Completely certain. Then I'll go too. Just like that. Two people who had zero interest in camping were suddenly joining. Talk about a weird coincidence. Or maybe fate trolling me. Camping day arrived. I came fully prepared. I'd been camping since I was a kid. Outdoor survival and hiking routines were basically muscle memory. Nothing about this worried me. This was my home turf. After everyone gathered at the school entrance, we boarded a bus toward the mountain. According to the plan, we'd hike to the summit before sunset, then set up camp on an open field near the top. Our usually quiet class became ridiculously lively thanks to one person. The possessive stepbrother. The whole hike, everyone surrounded him, laughing nonstop. They chatted like old friends. Meanwhile, I stayed near the front of the line, listening to the laughter behind me. I didn't belong there. Then the class president hurried to catch up with me. When we get there, let's build our tents together. It'll be more fun. I didn't overthink it, sure. And maybe we can camp next to each other. I looked at him. His cheeks were slightly red, trying and failing to hide his expectations. Before I could answer, another familiar voice interrupted us. Our tents can be neighbors. Seriously? I felt my blood pressure spike. This guy just would not quit. I couldn't read him at all. Not even a little. Then things got even worse. I suddenly realized my protective charm was gone. Missing? He quietly watched me. Without saying anything, I'll help you look for it. The class president immediately volunteered. He was genuinely worried. My mom gave me that charm for my birthday. I've worn it every single day. I've never taken it off. It means everything to me. I shook my head and reassured him. You still have everyone else to lead. I'll find it myself. I'll be back soon. He still looked worried. Are you sure? You'll be okay alone? I'll go with him. Everyone turned in surprise. The possessive stepbrother walked toward me. Internally, I was screaming, because the last person I wanted beside me was him. Before I could refuse, the class president smiled. Perfect. 2 people are safer. We'll wait for you at the campsite. And just like that, I was forced to accept it. Behind me, that persistent shadow followed every step. I figured the charm had probably fallen when we got off the bus. Back then, I'd heard a tiny metallic sound. I ignored it at the time. Now, I realize that had been my charm hitting the ground. I walked faster. He stayed behind me, keeping the exact same distance. He looked less like someone helping and more like a silent stalker. Luckily, I'd camped here many times. I knew about a narrow shortcut down the mountain. So I deliberately turned onto it. My goal was simple: lose him. No matter where I went, he kept following. Not too close. Not too far. Like a raid boss tracking aggro, I sprinted through several sharp turns. And finally, he disappeared from sight. I was just starting to celebrate. Then the ground vanished beneath my feet. I lost my balance and tumbled down the steep slope. Everything went black the moment I slammed into the ground. I dragged myself off the ground, coughing like I'd just been comboed into oblivion. Dust covered every inch of me. When I finally looked around, I realized I'd fallen into a hidden pit. The opening was ridiculously high above me. There was no chance I could climb out alone. Seriously. When life decides to grief you, it goes all in. With no other choice, I yelled for help. Again. Nothing answered me. Only silence. Then, I heard footsteps above my head. The next second, the one face I both recognized and wanted to punch appeared over the edge. The guy looked down at me like he owned the world. Why are you calling me? Go find someone else. Not only did he refuse to help, he actually crouched at the edge. Watching me struggle like this was premium entertainment for him. If you want me to save you, beg. Then he stood up and acted like he was leaving. No way. Was this troll actually serious? Soam? Everything became quiet again. The silence slowly turned into fear. My brain immediately started spiraling. Was I seriously going to die down here? Right as panic was about to win. I heard footsteps again. That idiot actually came back. He leaned over the pit once more. So? You still want my help? I glared up at him. Then my pride finally lost. Please! Even I froze after saying it. I couldn't believe those words came out of my mouth. Before I could regret it, his eyes lit up. Oh, great. He had me exactly where he wanted me. That's it? Guess I'll leave then. He turned around again. But this time, his footing slipped. And before either of us realized it, he fell straight into the pit, right beside me. I completely lost it. I burst out laughing. Talk about instant karma. His face instantly darkened. He slowly looked at me. Funny? I expected him to rage. Instead, he started laughing too. Yeah, it actually is. Inside that cramped pit, we stood facing each other. Neither of us spoke. Finally, I broke the silence. So, how are we getting out now? This place was deserted. Almost nobody came through here. Waiting for rescue wasn't exactly a winning strategy. A wave of helplessness hit me. My heart sank. Were we actually trapped here for good? Then, he chuckled and casually looked at me. You know, doesn't this kind of feel like we're dying together? I knew exactly what he was doing. He was teasing me on purpose. But when our eyes met, those ridiculously charming eyes almost cripped me. My face instantly heated up. No way! I'm not dying with you. Stop talking nonsense, he smiled. A surprisingly gentle smile. I'd never let you die. I frowned. Then shot back. How many people have fallen for those lines? You must have farmed plenty of victims. He shook his head. His smile didn't fade. None. You're the first. That hit harder than expected. I immediately looked away. There was no way I was letting him see me blush. After a moment, he became serious. Then he made a plan. You climb first. I'll lift you. I'll get you out. I stared at him. I never expected him to give me the only escape, especially after acting like such a menace. I quickly weighed my options. There really weren't any. So I trusted him. I wasn't exactly heavy, but this was still asking a lot. He pushed upward with everything he had. Just enough. I grabbed the edge and pulled myself onto solid ground. The instant I turned back, I realized the effort had cost him dearly. The second I pulled myself over the edge, the support underneath me disappeared. He lost his footing and crashed right back into the pit. He landed flat on his back, then quietly looked up at me. His voice sounded calmer than I expected. You're not seriously thinking about leaving me down here, are you? I frowned. Not even for a second did I hesitate. I'm not like you. I could never do something like that. Instead of arguing, he simply smiled. I'll wait for you. At that moment, I realized fate really loved throwing impossible curveballs. The forecast had promised perfect sunshine all day. But while I sprinted down the mountain, searching desperately for help, the sky suddenly darkened. A light drizzle began to fall. Within minutes, it turned into a downpour. His battered face kept flashing through my mind, the fear in his eyes, and that forced smile he wore. Those images refused to leave me alone. I made myself one promise. No matter what happened, I was not abandoning him. Luckily, before I got too far, I ran into a group of classmates heading back down the mountain. I rushed straight toward them. I explained everything in one breath. Someone was trapped. The situation was critical. Without wasting another second, everyone followed me. The rain only became heavier. The mountain trail turned into pure nightmare difficulty. Mud and loose rocks kept sliding down around us. My heart wouldn't stop pounding. A horrible feeling settled deep inside me. When we finally reached the pit, I froze where I stood. The entrance I'd climbed out of had partially collapsed. My mind went completely blank. I charged forward like a madman. Through the curtain of rain and dust, I finally spotted him lying motionless at the bottom of the pit. His entire body was soaked by the freezing rain. He looked absolutely broken. Half of his body had been buried beneath a mound of collapsed dirt and rocks. I screamed his name with everything I had. My voice nearly tore my throat apart. When he heard me, his stiff body twitched ever so slightly. He struggled just to force his eyes open. The pouring rain blurred my vision. Even so, I could still read his lips perfectly. Without making a sound, he mouthed two heartbreaking words. "It hurts." Ever since I'd met him, he'd always carried himself like the main character, confident, untouchable, always in control. I'd never seen him this vulnerable. The cave-in had changed everything. The collapsed earth had created a steep slope leading into the pit. I didn't hesitate for even 1 second. I jumped straight back into the pit to save him. When I reached his side, I finally saw the full extent of his injuries. Blood covered his forehead. Warm crimson mixed with the freezing rain. It kept dripping down his face without stopping. I carefully pulled his trembling body into my arms. My throat tightened. The guilt was crushing me. "I didn't abandon you. I just came back too late. I'm sorry." Not long afterward, the ambulance finally arrived. I climbed in without a second thought. There was no way I was leaving his side now. The paramedics all stared at me, clearly confused by how desperate I looked. They exchanged puzzled looks before turning back to me. I took a deep breath, then answered without hesitation, "I'm his brother." A few hours later, the examination results finally came back. Everyone fell silent. The worst injury was the trauma to his head. When the pit collapsed, a massive rock had slammed directly into him. The impact left him unconscious for hours. That night, our parents stepped out to buy dinner. The hospital room became eerily quiet. Only he and I remained. I sat beside his bed without saying a word. I couldn't stop staring at his sleeping face. The doctors had stitched the wound on his head. Part of his hair had been shaved away for the operation. Fresh bandages wrapped tightly around the injury. Normally, I would have laughed at how ridiculous that haircut looked. But this time, I couldn't even force a smile. Instead, I reached over and gently touched his cold fingertips. They felt like ice. "I'm sorry," I whispered. The room stayed painfully silent. Only the steady beeping of the heart monitor echoed around us. Each beep made my guilt even heavier. The doctors decided to keep him hospitalized for observation. They wanted to monitor his recovery closely. From that day on, I rushed straight to the hospital after school every single day. No exceptions. I refused to leave his side for even a moment. Maybe the head injury had changed something. The arrogant, obsessive guy I knew had become strangely quiet and gentle. Every time I walked into his room, he was already lying there peacefully. No sarcastic remarks. No drama. It was almost like he didn't even notice I existed. I never expected him to suddenly become talkative. I just wanted to stay with him. At least until he recovered. Every afternoon, I'd sit beside his bed, doing my homework in silence, keeping him company while he rested. On the third day, everything changed. A woman I'd never seen before was standing inside his room. I stopped outside the doorway. I could hear her speaking to him in a soft, comforting voice. Gentle, almost motherly. But then, the entire mood flipped in an instant. Without warning, he ripped the 4-needle out of his hand, then grabbed the glass sitting on the table, and smashed it onto the floor. CRASH. Glass exploded across the room. My heart skipped a beat. I threw the door open and rushed inside. His father arrived almost at the same time. He immediately stepped between them, then forcibly dragged the woman toward the door. Her expression changed instantly. She started screaming. Absolutely hysterical. Nothing like the gentlewoman she'd pretended to be seconds earlier. Under the bright hospital lights, I finally got a clear look at her face. It was twisted with madness. Oddly enough, she shared a striking resemblance with him. After his father finally dragged her out, My eyes immediately landed on his hand. Blood was running down from where he'd ripped out the four. It dripped all the way to his fingertips. Damn! I hurried over to support him. I gently helped him lie back down. To my surprise, he listened without resisting at all. Not even a little. I immediately called the nurse. She cleaned and disinfected the wound, then inserted a fresh four. The whole time, he stayed completely still. No struggling, no complaints. He was unbelievably obedient. Once everything was finished, I quietly asked if he was hurting anywhere. He only stared silently at the ceiling. He didn't answer. Not a single word. Broken pieces of glass were still scattered across the floor. I turned around to clean them up. I didn't want anyone getting hurt, but just then, his hoarse voice suddenly stopped me. He quietly asked, "Does your hand still hurt? More than when I hit you back then?" My heart skipped a beat. I froze where I stood. Slowly, I turned back toward him. The shaved patch on his head exposed an old scar, a long, faded scar that had been hidden beneath his hair. It was impossible to ignore. My fingers trembled. Even my voice shook. Did you do that to yourself on purpose?" He lowered his eyes. "Yeah," he answered calmly, but I could hear the bitterness hiding beneath his voice. "My mother was drunk, and she smashed a bottle." I couldn't find a single word to say. How do you comfort someone after hearing that? Only then did I finally understand. He hadn't grown up in a loving home. He had survived one. Outside, the window slowly blurred with rain. The drizzle kept falling without mercy. Lately, the weather had been changing as unpredictably as our lives. Nothing stayed the same. I stood up. I wanted to find his father and tell him what happened. But the moment I turned, he suddenly grabbed my wrist. My whole body stiffened. So did my heart. "Please, don't leave!" I'd never seen him like this before. The arrogance, the obsession, all of it was gone. He looked like nothing more than a frightened kid. Something inside my chest completely melted. I couldn't ignore the pain in his eyes anymore. I gently held his cold hand in both of mine. "I'm not going anywhere." The moment he heard that, his grip slowly loosened. He quietly turned his face toward the wall again. Rain tapped softly against the window. Neither of us spoke. The silence filled the entire room. A few moments later, I heard him sniffle. Then, for the first time, he softly called my name. "I'm sorry." Those two words hung quietly in the air. From that day forward, he was never the same person again. After the accident, everything changed whenever our parents weren't around. The toxic stepbrother suddenly treated me with a kindness I had never seen before. The sarcasm disappeared. He stopped calling me brother with that obsessive possessiveness. Instead, he acted like an ordinary teenager. He simply called me by my name. That sudden shift honestly left me completely confused. At first, I actually believed that surviving death had finally made him realize everything. I thought he had truly changed. Yeah, that hope didn't survive very long. What grew inside him wasn't guilt. It was an even more dangerous obsession with me. He stuck to my side constantly. Every girl around me was treated like an enemy. He refused to let anyone get close to me. If my eyes lingered on someone else for even a second, he would immediately do something ridiculous, just to steal my attention back. He wanted my entire world to revolve around him alone. That wasn't affection anymore. It felt like a walking red flag, and my anxiety kept growing. Then came the day he won the Outstanding Student Award. That was my breaking point. He walked off the stage without hesitation and came straight toward me. Then he shoved his award certificate into my arms. Every student nearby immediately started staring. The whisper spread instantly. I realized exactly what he was trying to do. He was publicly marking me as his. Luckily, the ambulance incident had been covered up. Thanks to our family friend, nobody connected the dots. The school knew nothing about the twisted relationship between us. But after that stunt, I felt more uncomfortable than ever. My instincts were screaming at me. I had to act. I needed to break this cycle before it got even worse. So I went to the kind classmate. I gathered every ounce of courage. "Can you help me with something?" She looked at me with gentle curiosity, then quietly nodded. He clenched my fists and made the craziest request. "Will you pretend to be my girlfriend?" The second those words came out, her entire face turned bright red. She looked completely flustered, but after seeing how serious I was, she didn't tease me. She simply smiled and agreed. With a little strategic acting, the rumors about me and the toxic stepbrother disappeared almost overnight. Instead, the entire school started talking about my new relationship. People couldn't believe it. "So they actually got together?" Others whispered, "I thought she liked him for years." Someone else added, "And wasn't the toxic stepbrother supposed to like her too?" Eventually, everyone agreed that all the previous rumors had been fake. Groups of girls kept whispering in class. I could feel every pair of eyes on me. Curious, confused, suspicious. From that day on, I intentionally kept my distance from him. Classes, lunch, after-school activities, I stayed beside my fake girlfriend. Surprisingly, he stopped following me everywhere. The constant shadow behind me vanished. Lately, he had been showing up barely before class, or sometimes even arriving late. Normally, his top-ranked grades bought him unlimited freedom. Most teachers just looked the other way. Nobody questioned him. But today, he finally ran into the vice principal. Class had already started when the vice principal dragged him to our classroom door. And judging by that expression, the homeroom teacher exploded the second the yandere stepbrother walked through the door. "Class has already started. Do you seriously not know what time it is? So you got first place once and suddenly think you're the main character?" His tone was packed with pure disappointment. "You really think you're untouchable now? What makes you so sure you'll stay number one next time?" If this had happened a few weeks earlier, the yandere stepbrother would have smiled politely, apologized with perfect manners, and talked his way out of the punishment like an absolute social genius. That version of him was gone. After everything he'd been through, he couldn't even be bothered to fake being obedient anymore. He just stood there, expressionless, cold, silent from beginning to end. That only poured gasoline on the teacher's anger. He completely lost it. The lecture got louder and harsher by the second. Finally, he pointed toward the hallway. "Stand outside until class is over. No arguments. No excuses." The punishment was final. So he quietly walked out. When the class finally ended, he stepped back into the classroom. The atmosphere around him felt freezing, like the temperature had dropped 10 degrees. Even I instinctively tensed up. I couldn't stop myself from secretly looking at him. Almost instantly, he looked straight back at me. The second our eyes met, my heart skipped a beat. That gaze was exactly the same as the day we first met. The same look he gave me when he warned me never to touch his belongings. Cold. Sharp. Completely unreadable. I immediately looked away. I didn't dare meet his eyes again. The rest of the day, I couldn't focus on anything. My mind kept replaying one question. Was pretending to date the kind classmate actually the right decision? But after thinking it through, I forced myself to stay firm. Even if the Yandere stepbrother got angry and told my mom everything, the worst I'd get was a lecture. I could survive that. But if our twisted relationship kept spiraling out of control, there would be no coming back. That ending would be a complete disaster. I absolutely couldn't let that happen. Then something unexpected happened. Despite all the dating rumors, he never told our parents a single word. Not once. Life at home stayed exactly the same. There was only one difference. He treated me with complete emotional distance. No obsession. No clinging. Just cold indifference. I spent several days on edge, waiting for everything to explode. But nothing happened. Slowly, I convinced myself I'd actually won. That night, Mom cooked an incredible dinner. She kept putting food into the Yandere stepbrother's bowl, telling him to eat more and recover properly. Normally, he'd smile and thank her. Not tonight. He barely touched his food, then quietly left the table. Mom watched him leave with concern. Has he been feeling down lately? His father simply guessed it was stress from studying. Neither of us mentioned the incident with his biological mother. We silently buried that secret. Then Mom suddenly turned toward me. You need to work harder too! Learn from him. I didn't even bother arguing. I casually changed the subject. I'm planning to get my driver's license. She smiled and encouraged me. That conversation ended there. Later that night, I lay awake in bed. I kept replaying everything that had happened. He definitely knew I was getting closer to the kind classmate. But how much had he figured out? Did he know we were only pretending? Or had I actually fooled him? Either way, his cold distance was exactly what I'd wanted. Maybe this peaceful ending was finally real. Just as I was about to fall asleep. Knock. Knock. A quiet knock echoed through the house. I stayed completely still, pretending to be asleep. A few seconds later, another gentle knock came. I was terrified my parents would wake up, so I hurried to the door. I slowly pulled it open. Standing outside was the Yandere stepbrother. Moonlight spilled across his shoulders. He looked down at me, wearing a gentle smile. But somehow, that smile felt colder than ever before. It was polite. Beautiful. And completely unfamiliar. The moment I saw it, Every instinct in my body screamed that something was terribly wrong. Without thinking, I took one step backward. And that's when everything truly began. I kept asking myself, if I truly hated her, why hadn't I pushed her away immediately? I could have done what I'd always planned: cut her out of my life completely. So why did I go through all this trouble, dragging an innocent girl into a fake relationship with me? And why? When she got that close, was the first thing I blurted out that I was her brother? The darkroom offered no answers, only silence, and the pounding of my own heart, echoing louder than any words. After 2 weeks of pretending to date, I thought it through carefully. Then I asked to end our fake relationship. I looked at her with genuine guilt. I apologized sincerely. This wasn't fair to you. I was selfish. Thank you for helping me keep up this act. She only smiled softly. Her expression held no resentment at all. You don't need to apologize. After a brief silence, she shyly looked away, then quietly admitted, I had my own reasons too. I wouldn't have agreed. If it had been anyone else, her feelings couldn't have been clearer. I understood immediately, but I pretended not to. I stayed silent. To avoid creating more problems, we kept our breakup a secret. Everyone at school still believed we were dating. Once she knew, we were only siblings and thought I already had a girlfriend. She finally stopped seeing me as a rival. Her guard disappeared. She started talking to me almost every day. At first, it was just casual chats. Soon, she was asking me to hang out. The more time we spent together, the more I realized she wasn't just attractive. She was incredibly genuine. She loved openly and hated openly. She never hid her feelings, unlike someone else who buried everything behind obsession. This time, she invited me out. For the simplest reason imaginable, she wanted to help me get revenge. Lin Hang is there today. I've never liked that jerk. He used to bully you. Just show up and crush his confidence. I understood immediately. Lin Hang was the underclassman who used to torment me at school. I wanted to refuse, but she kept insisting. She wouldn't give up. Just come with me. It won't take long, 5 minutes. I'll make sure you're home afterward. I couldn't stop second-guessing myself. Maybe getting along with the guys crushing on ***, my neighbor girl ***, would finally solve this mess. If everyone believed that we were nothing more than childhood neighbors, then every stupid rumor between us would finally disappear for good. I figured showing up for a few minutes couldn't possibly hurt. So I agreed. Part of me even thought, seeing those nervous guys who once treated me like some terrifying rival might finally give me some closure. But I had no idea this normal high school dinner had basically turned into an adults-only drinking party. The second I pushed the door open, a wall of cigarette smoke and alcohol slammed into my face. The air was suffocating. I frowned immediately. My friend hurried over and whispered in my ear, Relax. The guest of honor isn't here yet. Just wait a little longer. Honestly, I wanted to leave that instant, but I'd already promised to come. Walking out immediately would have been a scumbag move, so I swallowed my frustration and sat quietly in the corner. A few minutes later, the private room door opened again, a painfully familiar voice. Then I heard, it was them. I instinctively looked up. The moment my eyes reached the doorway, my entire body froze. Ice-cold fear shot up from my feet. It spread through every inch of my body. Through the haze of smoke, I saw the one person I'd spent years trying to erase. The person I never wanted to see again. My toxic ex-friend, the name I'd buried deep inside my heart, dragged every ugly memory back to the surface. One broken fragment after another crashed into my mind. That's when I realized something. Long before I became a victim, I'd once been part of the bullies. Maybe I never threw the hardest punch, but I stood there and did nothing. That stain could never be erased. The room was still loud. Yet she spotted me almost instantly. The moment our eyes met, time itself stopped. Meanwhile, Sing, the loudmouth classmate, started showing off. Everyone, let me introduce someone. She never looked away from me. Not once. A faint smile curled across her lips. Then she said casually, "Nice to see you again." Everything suddenly made sense. I'd always wondered where that timid kid I used to know had learned to bully people. Now I finally had my answer. She had taught him. Corruption spreads faster than anyone realizes. And suddenly, I understood why he'd invited me here. He had brought in the most infamous delinquent around, just to back himself up. What he didn't know was that she and I shared a past filthier than anyone could imagine. When we split apart, it ended horribly. We never spoke again. I still remember confronting her back then. "Why do you solve everything with violence? Why take things so far?" She laughed right in my face. Pure mockery. "I beat them up for your sake. And now you're blaming me?" I stared back with red eyes. "Did you really have to go that far?" Her expression turned absolutely freezing. Then she destroyed me with one sentence. "We're the same. We're both dirty. We both belong in hell." Those words haunted me for years. They became my worst nightmare. I replayed that moment over and over until guilt consumed me. Then I transferred schools. When I became the one getting bullied, I wasn't even angry. A twisted part of me almost felt relieved. Maybe this was my punishment. Maybe I didn't have to carry that guilt alone anymore. The entire dinner completely fell apart. Forget the plan. I couldn't focus on anything. The second ***, my toxic ex-friend *** appeared. My nerves shattered. I couldn't stay there. I fled the party like a complete wreck. I burst out of the restaurant. Then I started running. I just wanted to escape that nightmare. But fate wasn't done farming me for suffering. A motorcycle engine roared behind me. Loud, aggressive, ***, my toxic ex-friend *** rolled up with her entire squad. They cut me off in the middle of the street. I had no choice but to stop. Every muscle tightened. I stayed on full alert. "Need something?" I asked, as she slowly removed her helmet. Her hair was slightly messy, the side profile sharp like a blade. She tilted her head toward the dark alley nearby, like she was already deciding my fate. "Come inside! Let's talk!" My feet didn't move an inch. Every instinct in my body screamed danger. I remembered this exact feeling from before I transferred schools. Same kind of empty, dead alley. They dragged me in there back then. Pinned me down. Humiliated me without hesitation. Like I wasn't even human. I barely escaped with everything I had. And now I refused to move. He chuckled softly, then reached out, aiming for my shoulder. Instinct kicked in. I twisted my body away instantly. His hand missed. He froze. The smile on his face faded. He crushed his cigarette between his fingers. Cold pressure leaked from his expression. Still this stubborn, not giving me even one chance? I stepped back, eyes scanning every direction, looking for any possible escape route. But he stepped forward instantly, blocking everything. No exit left. Used to run from me, didn't you? Try it now. Go on. Disgust and fear exploded inside me at the same time. My fists clenched hard. One word slipped out. Silence. Then he laughed, like I'd told a joke. His eyes turned sharp. You really said that? Su Jinyan, you're asking to die. The moment those words dropped, his signal went out. A group of his guys stepped forward, closing in on me, about to surround me completely. And then, boom, a figure broke through the crowd, stepping in front of me without hesitation. Asterisk, asterisk, my neighbor girl, asterisk, asterisk, stood there. Small frame, but the aura was lethal. Ice cold. Touch him, she said quietly, and try surviving it. The alley went silent. Even asterisk, asterisk, the alley tyrant, asterisk, asterisk, froze, completely caught off guard. Who the hell is this? You got a death wish? He rushed forward. A heavy punch aimed straight at her face. Fast, brutal. My heart jumped. I thought it was over, but she didn't even flinch. She tilted her head slightly, barely dodging it, like it was nothing more than a slow-motion mistake. Then she countered. One clean strike. Perfect timing. It smashed into his face. Blood immediately burst from his nose. Instant shutdown. Before he could recover, she grabbed his wrist, twisted, controlled, and locked him down instantly. Then she pulled something out. A pair of scissors. Sharp blade. Pressed right against his throat. The pressure in the air spiked instantly. Everyone back off, she said coldly, or I cut him right here. Even the loudest bully went silent, pinned to the ground, unable to move. Completely helpless under her grip. He started panicking. Everyone, fall back. Now! One by one, his entire squad backed off. No one dared move. When the alley finally cleared, she released him slowly. But he still wasn't done talking. Su Jinyan's just a pretty face. Before he could finish, she grabbed him again and slammed him down. Hard. Dust exploded from the ground. His arrogance shattered instantly. Now he was begging. Genuinely begging. I was wrong. I was wrong. I stood there, frozen, watching everything unfold. I'd never seen her like this before. But she wasn't done. She grabbed him by the hair and slammed his face into the ground again. Blood mixed with dust. Every ounce of dominance he had, gone. I started to worry she'd go too far. Then suddenly, she stopped. Let go. And the alley fell into an uneasy silence. Now he was panicking, begging with a cracked, desperate voice. I was wrong. I really was wrong. Blood ran into his eyes. Please, just let go. I watched the chaos unfold in front of me. A strange unease rose in my chest. I was afraid she might go too far this time. My neighbor girl let out a cold breath. Then she released him without hesitation. This time, asterisk, asterisk, the alley tyrant, asterisk, asterisk, was truly broken. He dropped to his knees, scrambling to wipe the blood from his face. No more arrogance left. My neighbor girl glanced at him once, said nothing, then turned away and walked off. I snapped out of it immediately and rushed after her. Why are you here? Don't tell me it's just coincidence. I didn't buy it for a second. No way. A thought clicked in my head. She'd probably been following me ever since that evening, watching everything unfold, never interfering. Now I trailed behind her, still shaken. You're insanely strong. Did you learn martial arts? She answered casually, like nothing important had happened. Learned a bit when I was younger. My curiosity lit up instantly. Seriously? Teach me too. Even just a little. No. A clean, immediate refusal. So stingy. I kept pestering her, She sighed in exhaustion. Do you ever get tired of talking? That night on the way home, the road felt strangely longer than usual. I followed behind her silently. Streetlights flickered on one by one. Our shadows stretched and overlapped across the pavement. For a moment, I felt something I couldn't explain. Peace. All the tension in my chest slowly dissolved. From that day on, something between us shifted. An unspoken understanding formed. No explanations needed. No promises either. Just silent companionship. Over time, it became routine. We'd always somehow meet on the way home. Like fate kept looping us back together. And it lasted a long time. She slowly became more open. Back into that version of herself who once stood bright on every stage. But I knew it was still a mask. Yet somehow, I started believing it was real. That she was meant to be this bright. She helped me study. Remembered my birthday. Took me out to clear my head. Even brought me small gifts. My mother often smiled and said, "You two really get along well." And I started believing it too. That maybe this really was family-like harmony. A calm, steady life. I even started hoping that things would stay this way forever. That we'd grow up normally, side by side. Graduate. Build a future. But life doesn't care about plans. It never does. Not even close. Until everything changed. Completely. Out of nowhere. No warning at all. It happened on an ordinary afternoon, the day my mother went out to prepare a surprise for someone she loved. I was sitting in class, listening to a boring physics lecture. Then the door suddenly opened. The teacher called my name and asked me to step outside. A bad feeling instantly took hold of me, like something inside my chest had clenched. Then came the words that shattered everything. Your mother was in an accident. She's in the hospital. My mind went completely blank. All sound disappeared. Reality stopped making sense. Later, I learned the truth. It wasn't a hospital situation at all. A truck collision. The car completely crushed. No chance of survival. But I didn't accept it. Not at first. I kept believing she was still alive. Still fighting. Still coming back. Until I saw her, cold, still, gone. That's when everything collapsed. And I realized I had nothing left. Nothing but emptiness. Nothing but silence. And a life that suddenly felt There was no time left to save her. But I didn't understand that yet. I was still clinging to a stupid, fragile hope. I kept telling myself she was still in surgery, that she would definitely make it out alive. I was still waiting for a miracle. Until I reached the hospital myself and saw that body. Cold, still, unforgiving. Everything I believed in collapsed instantly. It felt like my entire world shut down. The only person who ever loved me was gone. And I don't even remember how I survived after that. Everything was a blur, a long, endless haze. Days kept repeating like a curse. Sunrise, sunset, again and again. But inside me, everything stayed pitch black. I couldn't sleep, not even for a second. And when I finally did drift off, she was always there. Smiling at me, asking if I was studying. If I was living properly, I would nod in my dreams, like a man begging for her not to disappear again. But every time I woke up, all I had was a wet pillow and an emptiness that kept getting colder. I shut myself off from everything. No school. No people. Just me disappearing from the world. That's when he showed up. my biological father, after years of silence, offering to take me away. A new city, a new life. He asked me what I wanted. I didn't even look at the girl beside me. I just nodded. Because staying made no sense anymore. Leaving was just a logical choice. The day I left, the sky felt heavy. Like it knew something was ending, for good. And then she handed me a small box. I opened it slowly. Inside was a familiar charm. Something I thought I had lost forever. A gift from my mother. My breathing stopped. I looked at her, stunned. She just said she rebuilt it from memory. Not perfect, but close enough. I held it tightly. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something cracked inside me. Something human. But peace never lasts in my world. Because that charm was gone again by the time I got home. Like it was never meant to stay with me. That night, I packed my things to leave. A storm hit the city. Rain like the world was collapsing. And then I realized I had lost it again. That charm was gone. I ran out into the storm. No plan, no direction. Just pure panic. But the city didn't care. It swallowed my desperation whole. And then I understood something. Some things don't come back. Ever. Not people, not memories, nothing. I turned back toward home. And that's when it happened. A hand grabbed me, dragging me into a dark alley. No warning. No escape. I was slammed to the ground. Surrounded instantly. Phones out, laughing. Like I was entertainment. Like I wasn't even a person. And then the tearing started. The humiliation. And I realized this wasn't random. This was planned. And I was the target. Again. Just when I thought it was over, the world pulled me back in. And this time, there was no mercy waiting for me. But halfway through the rain-soaked streets, that narrow, dark alley came into view. And then, out of nowhere, an arm shot out, strong, relentless. It yanked me straight into the alley. I snapped my head up. Too late. I was face to face with the arrogant enforcer I had seen before, and I finally realized it. I was completely surrounded. They slammed me to the cold, wet ground without hesitation. Finally caught you alone, he sneered. Su Jingyan, let's see where you run now. He stepped closer, slow, confident. Then he grabbed my collar. R.I.P. My shirt tore clean open at the neckline. A branded fabric. Gone. I looked like a wreck. Then they swarmed me. Phones came out, flashing, recording every second of my humiliation. Pure malice. From the back of the crowd, a voice hesitated. Isn't this going too far? I looked over. It was Lin Hung, standing at the edge, uneasy. He couldn't even meet my eyes. My toxic ex just scoffed. You're defending him now? When he humiliated you before, where was your sympathy? Silence. Lin Hang bit his lip. I didn't forget, I just... Enough excuses, she snapped. Stay out of it. And just like that, everyone stepped back. No one stopped her. She went even further. Like she had permission now. No breaks. They held me down completely. Every attempt to resist. Rewarded with another slap, another hit, another humiliation. Mud. Everywhere. Noise. Chaos. Pain raining down without pause. Blows echoed across my face and body. Heat spread through my skin. And I felt it. My face swelling fast. Blood from my nose wouldn't stop flowing. Mixing with rain and dirt. Lin Hang flinched at the sight. He actually gasped. Stop! He might die! Shut up! He'll survive. My toxic ex didn't even blink. Then, Lin Hang finally broke. He turned and ran. Out of the alley. Gone. I lay there, frozen, staring at the gray, dying sky above me. My voice barely came out anymore. My mother. That's when she paused. No emotion, no hesitation. Just cold contempt. Not my problem. I lowered my gaze, locked onto her. You won't get away with this. She won't let you. Rain kept falling, cold wind screaming through the alley. Fear multiplied in the silence. That single sentence hit her hard. Her expression twitched, then snapped. She kicked me hard. Pain exploded through my entire body like lightning. I curled up instantly, shaking, helpless, watching them all turn away, their figures fading into the rain. Until only silence remained, the alley empty again. My nerves finally collapsed. I don't know how long I stayed there. Blood dried on my face. Dirt and bruises covering everything. I pulled my broken shirt around me. Step by step, I dragged myself home. Every movement felt like bones grinding, barely holding together. One step, then another. The moment I closed the door, the rain outside vanished like it never existed. Silence swallowed everything. I slid down the doorframe, unable to hold myself up. Time passed. I don't even know how much. Then the door suddenly opened from the outside. A woman stood there, backlit. My gaze immediately dropped to her face. And she froze. Her calm shattered instantly. Something dangerous lit up inside her. She walked toward me. Fast, heavy steps. I saw it clearly. Rage and heartbreak mixing in her eyes. Who did this to you? Her voice trembled, barely controlled. Was it her? The fear in her tone cracked. Then she snapped completely. Was it her? Her eyes turned red. Fury and tears burning at the same time. She slammed something down and stormed toward the kitchen. And came back holding a kitchen knife. The blade caught the light, and everything changed. She turned, ready to rush out the door. My heart dropped instantly. Even though every bone in my body screamed in pain, I forced myself up and grabbed her from behind with everything I had left. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm really fine. I kept repeating it, trying to calm the storm, shaking her whole body. Then I heard it, her suppressed sob. Sharp, fragile, barely holding together. And then the knife slipped from her hand. Clang hit the floor hard. She froze, then suddenly spun around and pulled me into her arms. Tight, desperate, like she was trying to fuse me into her soul. I was completely trapped in her warmth. Her scent hit me, clean, soft, painfully familiar. And just like that, everything I'd been holding in broke. All of it collapsed. Hot tears spilled out without permission, soaking her shirt completely. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She kept whispering it over and over. Her voice cracked apart, full of guilt, full of fear. I lifted my head slightly, raised a finger, pressed it gently against her lips. A silent stop. I shook my head. No blame, no anger, just understanding. She looked at me, lost, fragile, like a child in the dark. I slowly pulled my hand back, tilted my head up, and kissed her. Soft, careful, real. I will never forget that rain-soaked day for the rest of my life. I gave her my first real feeling. To a girl who once cried while seeking revenge and kept apologizing like she was the one breaking. Our beginning was never clean. We fought, we mistrusted, we clashed endlessly. But somewhere along the chaos, we made it here, broken, but together in that moment. And I finally admitted it. A truth I buried for too long. I had already fallen for her. But life doesn't care about feelings. Real endings don't happen just because you confess. I packed away everything I felt and left as if nothing ever happened. She came for me as promised, and pulled me out of that city. I left behind a place full of pain and full of the only warmth I ever knew. I also left behind the person I once loved and once feared losing. At first, I tried every way possible to reach her. Messages, emails, calls, everything vanished into silence. No response. Later, I contacted the police, and I finally learned the truth. She was gone. Completely disappeared from every record. No one knew where she went. No trace left behind. Even her closest followers lost contact completely. She had erased her entire past, cutting every single thread, as if she never existed there at all. After a long silence, I finally let go, stopped chasing. But in every sleepless night, I still see that Rain. The boy who stood in front of me without hesitation. And the girl I used to be, soft, unsure. I keep wondering, does he remember it too? That rain-soaked goodbye, when we held each other like nothing in the world could break us. If he remembers, then why didn't he ever look back? Life moved on without me there. A new family formed around me. But I never truly belonged. I was always outside the circle, watching from a distance. So I escaped through education. University became my exit door, and I never returned to that house again. Never. I built my life far away from them. And slowly, they stopped mattering to me at all. Luckily, exams finally ended. I got into a university in another city, and I escaped that suffocating house for good. After graduation, I kept grinding in the outside world, alone, always alone. Over time, family stopped meaning much to me. It no longer pulled at my thoughts. 8 years passed like that, until I stepped back into that city again. A place packed with old regrets. This time, I didn't come back for nostalgia. I came back for a promise. A promise tied to someone important. A strange twist of fate. Someone I never expected stayed in my life. We were never close back then, almost strangers. But somehow, we kept in touch all these years, becoming something quietly consistent in my life. I didn't refuse. I accepted the invitation. When the plane landed, that strange feeling hit me again, familiar but distant, like stepping into a memory I never finished. I didn't go home. Instead, I checked into a hotel I had already arranged in advance. Life had moved on for everyone else. He had even gotten married. Everything arranged perfectly, like a polished public script. Even the guest arrangements were flawless. No loose ends. The night before the wedding, he hosted a banquet, a reunion for old high school classmates. And that's when things got complicated. Because unexpectedly, Lin Heng showed up at the table. Someone leaned in and quietly explained, "We work together now." It would have been awkward not to invite him. I couldn't help but think, what a strange coincidence life is. 8 years gone. Everything changed. Nothing stayed the same. But when Lin Heng saw me, his reaction was the same as before. That instinctive tension carved deep into habit. I simply nodded back calmly. A quiet acknowledgement. Nothing more. Then I turned away, smiling faintly where no one could see. To outsiders, it looked harmless. But in reality, it would have looked twisted. Like I was the villain in someone else's memory. Adults are experts at pretending everything is fine. The past, nobody touches it. Everyone silently agrees to forget. After a few drinks, the atmosphere loosened. And then someone brought it up. That name, Su Wanjing, returned like a ghost. A question slipped out. Has anyone heard where she ended up? Silence, then awkward laughter, and uncertainty. Everyone shook their heads. No one knew. But Lin Heng's expression changed instantly. Something unreadable flashed in his eyes. He turned, slowly, toward me, and asked casually, almost too casually, "Weren't you two neighbors back then?" "Where is she now?" All eyes turned to me, curiosity spreading. Because over the past 2 years, I had become publicly linked with her. We were seen as a couple, at least in everyone else's eyes. She had reappeared in my life unexpectedly 2 years ago. Warm, gentle, perfectly attentive. The timing felt right. The person felt right. So I didn't resist it. I let it happen. We've dated for over a year. At first, everything looked stable, but comfort always fades. And cracks always start to show. Slowly. Inevitably. Everything broke after her mother got involved. Her mother never accepted me. Constant criticism, constant pressure. And she always sided with her, no matter what the cost. And deep down, I knew it. As a daughter, I know what duty means. I was taught that being obedient is never wrong. But as a partner, I was always the one weighing every outcome, always compromising. Never once did she stand firmly on my side. So tell me, what exactly was she to me? We fought hard before this wedding. Not a small argument, a war. A war we never truly resolved. She looked at me with that conflicted gaze. Guilt, hesitation, and hesitation again. Like she wanted to choose me, but couldn't. I only have one heart, she said. But the world needs me to love many people. Stop being unreasonable. And just like that, something inside me snapped. Cold. Completely cold. My mind drifted back to a KTV room soaked in cheap alcohol. Back when she still looked innocent. Soft, shy. She used to talk to me like I mattered. Her presence. Clean, warm, uncalculated. But time doesn't forgive anyone. That version of her disappeared. Replaced by someone who calculates everything. Every gain, every loss. Even love turned into a transaction. Then it hit me. A warmth on my wrist. A memory I thought I had buried. It came flooding back. A crowded scene from years ago. That same chaos. Noise everywhere. A girl sitting quietly beside me. Smiling softly. Calling me brother. You look good today. She once stood between me and danger. Without hesitation. She fought for me when others mocked me. She defended me like it was instinct. Like I was the only thing that mattered. And I thought I had forgotten her. I was wrong. I never forgot anything. My eyes slowly lifted toward the woman in front of me. My voice steady. Unshaken. I know. If you've ever been loved without conditions, you'd understand why I can't accept anything less. She froze. Then asked the question that changed everything. Who loved you like that? I lowered my head. Silence. Because I didn't know where she was anymore. Or if she even remembered me. But I knew one thing. She was real. And she was irreplaceable. I looked up again. Calm. Unshakable. I can't do this anymore. I'm done. The moment I said it, something inside the room broke, but nobody reacted. People just laughed, changed the topic. Like the word love had never existed here. Erased. Like it was never real. And just like that, I walked away, leaving everything behind. But fate wasn't finished with me, not even close. And that's when I saw her again. At a garage. Years later, in a completely different world. Dressed in work gear. Focused. Calm. And still dangerously familiar. My body moved before my mind did. I stood up. And I ran. Because I knew. The past wasn't gone. It was just waiting. And it just found me again. I stood there, staring at that meaningless chaos of a conversation, but my mind was already elsewhere. Nothing in that moment made sense anymore. Even the scratches on the car felt like background noise in my head, like the world itself refused to give me even a second to breathe. Then, it happened. He casually tossed me the keys like it was nothing. No explanation, no hesitation, just trust. Or maybe responsibility dumped on me. Go find a repair shop. Fix it. That was all I got. And just like that, I was dragged into his mess again. I didn't even have time to refuse. I just accepted it. So I picked a decent repair shop and drove the car there myself. Simple instructions. Standard situation. Nothing unusual. At least on paper. I explained the condition of the car to the mechanics and stepped back. Then came the waiting. That long, empty kind of waiting. Time slowed down in the worst possible way. I sat alone outside the garage, phone in hand, pretending to care about anything else. Mechanics walked past me constantly, covered in oil and sweat. The noise, the tools, the metallic chaos, it was all just background life. Normal, predictable, forgettable, until night started creeping in. That's when I felt it. A presence, like something had stepped directly into my space. My chest tightened. No reason, no warning, just instinct screaming danger, or memory. Something familiar crawled across my entire body like static electricity. I snapped my head up immediately. A woman stood inside that garage world. Rare in a place like this. Clean work uniform, practical, heavy duty, built for survival, not comfort. Hat pulled low, mask covering most of her face. But her eyes, sharp, clear, unmistakably familiar. She leaned over the engine like she was born understanding machines. Every movement precise, calm, controlled. I didn't even think. I just stood up. My body moved before my brain caught up. I walked straight toward her like I was pulled by gravity itself, and then it hit me harder than anything else in my life. She noticed me approaching. Slowly, she lifted her head. 8 years vanished in a single breath. Even behind that mask, even behind all that time, I knew her instantly. My voice cracked before I could control it. Everything I've buried came rushing back at once. Shock, relief, anger. Something dangerously close to hope. She froze for a split second, like a glitch in reality. Then, just as fast, her expression reset, cold, detached. No recognition, no emotion, like I was just another customer standing in her way. Who are you? Empty words, sharp enough to cut. Then I did something irreversible. I reached out and pulled her mask down, and there it was. That face. The same one I hadn't seen in 8 years, but she didn't react. Not even a flicker. She just returned to the engine like I never existed. Hands moving with mechanical precision. And then she said it. One word. Busy. Cold. Simple. Final. Like I was nothing more than noise. My fists tightened. I was shaking, but I forced myself to stay still. I didn't understand it. Not after everything. She used to be the top student. Untouchable. Someone brilliant. Destined for greatness. So, how the hell did she end up here? Stuck in a garage, covered in grease, living like this? My voice finally broke through the tension. Why are you here? No hesitation in her answer. Why not? That hit harder than any insult. I tried again. We need to talk. Everything I wanted to know. All of it. But she didn't even look at me. Just a wall of indifference. I'm working. No space. No time. No version of reality where I mattered. So I backed off. But I didn't leave. I waited, right outside the garage, because after 8 years, I wasn't letting this go. Not now, not again. And I told myself I'd stay until she finally broke. Or until I did. No middle ground anymore. This wasn't just a reunion. It felt like the start of something dangerous. And I wasn't ready for what came next. Not even close. But I wasn't backing down either. Because whatever she was hiding, I was going to drag it into the light. Even if it destroyed both of us. And I just stood there watching the door, waiting for her to come out. No matter how long it took. Because this story wasn't finished yet. Not even close. The night swallowed everything whole. And I stayed right there in the darkness. Waiting for the truth to come back out. Or for it to bury me instead. No escape anymore. Just the silence between us. And everything we never said. A spark in the dark. And a past that refused to die. I was about to find out why she disappeared. And I had a feeling I wouldn't like the answer. His eyes met mine again. This time, there was no escape. For a split second, everything else in the world just stopped moving. That look in his eyes, it shifted. Barely. But I saw it. And before I knew it, I was already walking toward him. My hand moved first, pulling a cigarette from his pack like I had every right to. I held it out. Close. Too close. He just stared at me, silent, studying me like a problem he couldn't solve. His brows tightened slightly. Then came that calm, controlled voice, like a rule being enforced. "Smoking isn't good for you!" I almost laughed. I leaned in anyway, lighting it from the faint flame between his fingers. One slow motion, deliberate. Like I was testing him. The flame caught, and suddenly, the distance between us felt dangerously small. His expression tightened again. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes. Gone, just as fast. I exhaled smoke slowly, like I had all the time in the world. Then I finally said it, what I'd buried for 8 years. "Where have you been all this time?" He flicked the cigarette ash off without hesitation. Cold, efficient, like cutting off a conversation before it even started. Then he lifted his head slightly. That familiar arrogance was still there, buried under years, but not gone. For a moment, I almost saw the version of him from the past. The one who used to shine so bright and made everyone else look fake. But, just like that, it disappeared again. He stepped past me. No hesitation, no emotion. Gone. And then came the words sharp enough to freeze my blood. No comment. That was it, like I didn't even deserve a real answer. Days passed after that, and I kept coming back to the same place, over and over again, waiting outside that garage like I was trying to break a locked door with patience alone. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth he buried for 8 years, but all I ever got was silence and repetition. "The car is fixed." That was all he ever said. Nothing more, nothing less. Until one evening, I waited again until the sky turned completely black. And he finally stepped out. No uniform this time, just casual clothes. Hood up, face half hidden. He didn't even look in my direction. Just walked. Like I didn't exist. But I moved anyway. I followed him. Through the narrow streets. And suddenly, the past started bleeding into the present. Back then, he was always the one following me. Always there, always chasing. And now, the roles had completely flipped. I was the one chasing him through the night. But the streets twisted like a maze. People, noise, darkness swallowing every direction. And then, just like that, I lost him, gone into the crowd like he was never there. I stood there, frozen in the middle of the street. The world kept moving, but I didn't. Then something clicked. A memory, a place I had forgotten until now. I ran, hard, no hesitation, straight to that old apartment block, the place where everything started. The place where I once lived with my mother, and where we existed in each other's lives. And the moment I arrived, breathless and shaking, I saw it. He was there. But something was different. The cold mask he always wore cracked. Just for a moment, something else showed through. Something real. Something dangerous. And I didn't give him time to recover. I slipped past him into the room. He didn't stop me. He just watched. Silent, calculating, like he was deciding whether to end this right there. Then came the threat. "I'll call the police." But I didn't move. I looked around that room, and the truth hit me like a wave. This was ours once. Silence. Then he moved. The door slammed shut behind me. The sound echoed like a final decision. And in the next second, he was suddenly right there. My back hit the wall, hard. No warning, no escape. His breath was close, too close. His eyes were red at the edges, like he'd been holding back something for years. I could feel it now. Everything. Time, distance, regret. And suddenly I saw him clearly. Not the boy I remembered, but the man he had become. Sharper, colder, worn by life, changed. The scent of smoke clung to him now. Not innocence anymore, but survival. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. We weren't kids anymore. We were something else entirely. Something unfinished. Something about to break open again. And I didn't know if I was ready for what came next, but I didn't look away. Because this time, I was staying until the truth came out, no matter the cost, even if it burned everything down. Can I kiss you? That one sentence froze her completely, like the entire world just hit pause. Her eyes widened, shock rippling through her calm facade. She clearly wasn't ready for something that direct. Not for me. Before she could even process it, I moved. I pulled her in and kissed her. No hesitation, no warning. And just like that, the past came crashing back. That rain-soaked memory we buried years ago. Back in this same room, where it all began. Back when everything was simpler. Back when I didn't know how much this would hurt later. That first time, I was stiff, careful, controlled, afraid to lose anything. But this time, all that control shattered. 8 years of silence exploded at once. I pulled her closer, like I was afraid she'd disappear again. Breath tangled, emotion spilled. No more distance left to hide behind. Everything we never said got rewritten in that moment, step by step, until the sofa caught us. She ended up sitting on my lap. My hand rested firmly at her waist, steadying her. Close. Too close. Her fingers slid into my hair. Gentle, almost hesitant. Then she touched that old scar on my head. The one I never talk about. The reminder of everything I survived, and everything she saw. That single touch broke something inside both of us. The intensity slowly faded. We pulled back just enough to breathe again. Forehead still touching, heart still racing. The air between us felt heavy, like it carried 8 years of unsaid words. I finally asked again. Where were you all this time? Silence. As always. No answer came. Just that same wall, built from years of disappearance. After that night, I took her back to the hotel. Like nothing had happened, like everything had changed. At the door, I finally said it. Cold, final, irreversible. Don't come looking for me again. But I knew her too well. She was never the type to obey that kind of order. And just like I predicted, she kept showing up. Again and again. Slowly blending into my world. The garage, my coworkers, my routine, our history. They just saw her as someone interested in me. And honestly, that misunderstanding made everything worse. She played along. Getting closer to everyone. Gathering information quietly. And little by little, she learned pieces of me I never intended. She even started bonding with my coworkers. Laughing with them like she was just another stranger in my life. But I noticed everything. Every glance she gave me when she thought I wasn't looking. Every time I talked to someone else, her eyes would quietly tighten. Like she was calculating something only she understood. And my coworkers, completely clueless. They just thought she was shy. A quiet girl slowly opening up. They even gave me advice like this was some innocent workplace romance. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know what we survived together. Or what we destroyed apart. All they saw was a man who suddenly became better at his job. Because yeah, that part was true. He really was gifted. The kind of genius who learns once and never forgets. But nobody knew what it cost him to get here. No one knew the 8 years he erased from the world. Not a single word. Not even to me. And that silence, that was the real problem. Because silence always comes back to demand payment. Even if you think you buried it deep enough. Days passed with her still showing up, still watching, still pushing. And me, I pretended she was just another distraction I could ignore. But I wasn't that good at lying. Not to myself. Because every time she left, I still looked. Just once, just long enough to confirm she was still there. And that was the part one hated most. The attachment, the reflex I couldn't kill. Then came that day, the one that changed the rhythm again. A group event, suits, formal fitting. I didn't expect her to come. But of course, she did. And everything started shifting again. Because once she entered my world fully, there was no pretending anymore. The past wasn't staying buried. It was coming back for both of us. And this time, I didn't know if we'd survive it. Every time I was laughing with my coworkers at the garage, roasting jokes like nothing mattered. I knew he was watching, quiet, calculating, like he was building some invisible chessboard, placing every single person around me into a position
He never said
only
anything.
he understood.
Never confronted me.
Just observed, controlled, and I saw
Measured.
it all. Those childish little moves. And I couldn't even decide if I should laugh or feel something because
heavier.
time hadn't changed him. Not even a little. That obsessive, possessive core of his still there. Every emotion he had, predictable. But there was one thing he never touched. The missing 8 years. Whatever happened back then, he sealed it shut. Locked it away like a forbidden file. Then came the wedding prep chaos. All the groomsmen got dragged into a suit fitting, and for once, I didn't run off to the garage. I went with them. Like I actually belonged there. And that's when it hit me. A pure white suit. Clean, sharp, dangerous in a different
Try it.
way, they said. Man, that would look insane on you. I almost refused. But they didn't stop pushing. Simon, don't tell me you're scared of seeing yourself as the groom. And just like that, I walked in. But my eyes weren't on the mirror. They drifted toward the wedding dresses in the corner. Silence. Something in me just stopped. Even the staff noticed. Just try it, she smiled. It'll look amazing on you. And somehow, I ended up standing in front of the mirror. The suit fit perfectly. Too perfectly. Shoulders straight, eyes sharper, like a version of me I hadn't met yet. Then they dragged me into styling. Makeup, hair, the full treatment. I felt ridiculous. Until my phone rang. Unknown number, local. I answered without thinking. And then I heard it. A voice I hadn't heard in years. It's me. And just like that, everything inside me froze. A silence. Heavy. Then the truth started spilling out. The past I never asked for, but apparently never escaped. My world didn't just shake. It cracked. And then, "Who are you calling?" A voice behind me snapped me back into reality. But I couldn't move. Not even breathe properly. My blood felt like it had stopped mid-flow. Then came the revelation. He lost control because of me. Back then, everything was buried, hidden, erased. A secret nobody was supposed to remember. But secrets don't stay dead. And mine just came back swinging. My mind went blank. Like someone pulled the plug on reality. And then, "Let's go. I've got a surprise for you." I didn't resist. I just followed. Like a puppet with cut strings. Then the doors opened. And the world turned cinematic. Lights, flowers, and then silence before impact. A bride stepped forward. White dress, shaking hands, brave eyes. A confession in human form. Everything before, I was wrong. I'll love you properly this time. The room exploded into cheers. Romance everywhere, like a perfect ending scene. But inside me, nothing. Because I wasn't seeing her. I was seeing the past. 8 years collapsing into one memory loop. And in that loop, I saw everything I ran from. So I did the only thing I could. I turned my back on the perfect proposal. And walked away. because I knew the truth. They never stood with me when it mattered. Not back then. And not now. I stepped out in a groom suit, ignored every stare, and ran straight into the chaos of the street. Then I flagged a taxi and left. A full-blown wedding setup. White Everyone called it everywhere. A perfect moment. Cameras ready. Flowers choking the air with romance. Not a spark. Not even a flicker. It was like standing inside someone else's dream, because my mind wasn't here at all. It kept dragging me back to her. The only face that ever stayed burned into my system. 8 years collapsing into fragments. Her at 16, defiant, trembling, and her later cold, refusing to break, like she built walls out of pain. Everything snapping back to that one rainy day. A girl standing in the storm, eyes red, gripping my hand like I was her last anchor. But I still turned away. Even with all that screaming behind me, even with the world calling it a beautiful moment, I ran because I already knew the truth no one wanted to say out loud. He, my so-called family bond, never chose me fully 8 years ago. Not when I was breaking in front of everyone. He stayed silent, watched it happen, and called it neutrality. And even now, 8 years later, nothing changed. Family always came first. Always. Never me. I stood there in a groom suit that didn't even feel like mine. People stared like I was supposed to be the happy ending. I didn't care. I just ran. Straight through the crowd. No hesitation! And I slammed my hand up hailing a taxi like I was escaping the collapsing world. Doors shut. The city blurred. Even the driver looked confused. Like I was some runaway groom straight out of a drama. I just exhaled slowly, almost laughing. But my eyes were burning. I'm not running away, I thought. I'm going to the only place I actually belong. To her. When I finally found her, she was just standing by the roadside. Cigarette lit. Alone. Quiet. Like she'd been waiting for something she didn't expect to arrive. Everything in her went still. Like time forgot how to move. I stood there in a groom suit. And she understood everything without me saying a word. Cigarette just hung there between her fingers, slowly burning down like a countdown. She tried to stay composed. But I could see it breaking. You're getting married? She asked. No answer from me. Just silence. And that silence said everything. She laughed it off, but it wasn't real. Go back, she said. Don't show up like this. Don't confuse me. But her voice cracked halfway through. And I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped closer. One step. That was all it took for everything to tilt. Why are you scared? I asked. And that did it. Her mask cracked wide open. 8 years of silence, regret, distance, all collapsing at once. She looked at me like she was drowning. Like she had been holding her breath for too long. And then she said it. Soft, broken, honest. I've waited too long. And I finally understood. This wasn't over. Not even close. She was still the only ending I ever wanted. And I wasn't leaving again. Not this time. Not ever. A broken laugh, because the tears came right after it. I want to get married, I said. My voice shook, but I didn't back down. I looked straight at her. No hesitation, no escape route. Will you marry me? She froze. Eyes wide, like reality just glitched, like she didn't process a single word. Her whole body locked up. And then she rushed into me, arms wrapping around me like she was afraid I'd disappear if she blinked. Her voice cracked right into my ear, shattered raw, barely holding itself together. All that pain she never said out loud. It's just, I can't fix it. I can't erase it. I pulled her closer immediately, holding her like she was the only stable thing in a collapsing world. It wasn't strength anymore. It was survival. I know everything, I whispered, and I'm still here. You're not alone anymore. My voice came out rough, because it hurt watching her carry all of that for so long. She held on tighter, like letting go wasn't an option anymore. And then I did something even I didn't fully think through. I slowly let go, dropped to one knee in front of her, looking up at her through everything we had survived. Will you marry me? Because this wasn't a perfect story. We were never perfect people. We were just two broken timelines colliding in the worst, messy, best possible way. Silent scars and survival, bound together by everything we couldn't undo. Years passed like punishment and healing at the same time, and somehow we made it through all of it. Past judgment, past pain, until there was only us left standing. When the engagement was finally set, we went back home together. Back to my roots, back to my mother. The sky that day was painfully clear. Like the world was pretending nothing ever went wrong. Too peaceful. The mountains stood still like they were listening, like they remembered everything I didn't say out loud. She quietly fixed something for me. A new protective charm. Exactly like the one I lost before. I kept it close to my chest like it was a second heartbeat. Standing in front of my mother's grave, I finally spoke, calm, honest. This time, I won't lose it again. I promise, I'll finally be happy. Her photo on the tombstone looked like it understood everything. Gentle eyes, a soft smile, like she was quietly approving. As if this ending had finally arrived. As if she was gently walking toward a love that had been delayed by fate, but never truly lost.